Are we really alone in the vastness of space? In light of the proof in recent history, we should at least start to understand that we might not be as alone as we once thought. From unofficial stories to videos, and later from declassified files to official videos, and corroborating with whistleblowers and high-ranking officials, we can start to see the bigger picture.
Area 51, one of the most secretive spots on the planet. It's located on the northeast edge of the Nevada test site and is said to be where numerous top-secret weapons systems have been tested over the years. According to some UFO researchers, it's also where the government is test flying alien spacecraft. It sounds pretty far out, but some Las Vegas residents report having seen these flying saucers.
Today's video is about Area 51, and we are going to try and understand what it is or what it isn't, taking into account the latest news relating to it. Firstly, a few key moments in its history help make it what it is today, without which it would have never established itself as the #1 alien conspiracy hotspot that it is. Area 51 has boggled the minds of the outside people since as long as it has been built, and the general population got wind of it in 1947, starting with the famous Roswell crash, where the military made a huge blunder by first declaring that indeed they had retrieved parts of a crashed flying disc, only to shortly thereafter retract their statement by calling it erroneous since they recovered pieces belonging to a weather balloon. During its mysterious existence, all sorts of stories came and went about what's going on in there, from all kinds of sources. Such a source presented itself when Robert Scott Lazar decided, for one reason or another, to come forward with his incredible story, fueling people's imagination, while at the same time shaping a better picture of what's going on in there. In 1989, he revealed his life story as an employee on the base, working on secret projects involving advanced and possibly alien spacecrafts just south of Groom Lake at an installation named S4.
Exactly what's going on up there?
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin, and they're being test flown and basically just analyzed.
You say there's 9 saucers. How are those tests going?
Oh, well, some of them are 100% intact and operate perfectly. The other ones are being taken apart. I was involved mainly in propulsion and the power source.
Where did we get these saucers? How did they come into the hands of the government?
I haven't the slightest idea, and you have to understand the information is very compartmentalized. And I was only allowed information that pertained particularly to what I was involved in.
But I mean, couldn't our government have made them as opposed to getting them from some alien beings?
Totally impossible. The propulsion system is a gravity propulsion system. The power source is an antimatter reactor. This technology does not exist at all. In fact, one of the reasons that I'm going forward with this information, it's not only a crime against the American people, it's a crime against the scientific community, which I've been part of for some time. We're actively trying to duplicate these systems, yet they are in existence now and basically in the hands of the government.
Yeah. What's going on, bro? There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing! It's rotating. Nickel 6-1 Tango Project. Oh, go ahead! Woohoo! Roger, there's troubleshooting as soon as Can you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly!
No question in my mind. I mean, I'm virtually certain that's the way the craft operated, and that uses close to or the exact same propulsion system.
It doesn't really matter at this point if people choose to believe this man's story or not, but the events that he related back then spread like wildfire, not only locally or in the US, but made headlines across the globe, having media flock to the gates of Area 51 from all corners of the world for years to come. Do remember that this place never officially existed at the time, and not even much later when threatened with a very revealing class action lawsuit by the employees on the base that tried to sue for being exposed to hazardous materials while on the grounds in 1998. The base didn't actually exist until 2013 when the CIA finally admitted its existence following a 2005 Freedom of Information Act that requested its files to be declassified with regards to its history. The early purpose for the base was definitely to create new technology that would help the US in the arms races against the USSR at the time by developing cutting-edge aircrafts such as the famous U-2 spy plane, F-117 stealth bomber, and the SR-71 Blackbird, just to name a few. All these aircrafts that had odd shapes and extreme flight characteristics were highly classified and kept from the general population, and maybe indeed over the decades led to many so-called UFO sightings, as people had no idea what the US Air Force is really capable of and what aircrafts have been developed. This combined with the constant refusal of admittance from the government of such a base existing, and also with the decades of movies, games, and books that constantly pushed the idea of aliens in a secret base out to the public, made it exactly what it is today. Also, the continuous stream of UFO sightings caught on video, people spreading their ideas on the internet, from forums to conferences, and as well whistleblowers from both reputable and unverifiable sources, create the exact shroud of mystery that some people might actually intend for it. I mean, what better way to keep your secrets safe than to focus everyone's attention in the wrong direction for decades on end? In more recent news, in 2019, there has been a modern event that initially pointed people to mass trespassing on the base grounds named Storm Area 51 They Can't Stop Us All, that actually turned out to be nothing more than a remote festival for all things alien around Roswell, with selfies taken on the so-called border and with people camping around the place. On more important grounds, I would like to point out that around the pandemic was in full swing, the former Israeli space security chief said officially that aliens are indeed real and that the US knows all about it because they had been sharing research bases with the US and the aliens, both here on Earth and on Mars. So there is this, and make of it what you will, but this would be a good time as well to remember that some time back there were other high-ranking officials that as well made declarations along those same lines. I am talking here about Paul Hellyer, the former Canadian defense minister, that in a few interviews pointed out that indeed the aliens are real and that they are here, and as well that the US knows all about them, and there might even be something called the Galactic Federations, where all sorts of contact is being made between humankind and several alien races. If all of this seems crazy, just remember that in 2019, President Trump officially founded the United States Space Force, being the 8th US uniformed service, and the world's first, and currently the only independent space force.
The light from a star can take millions of years to reach Earth. So when you look at a star, you're looking back in time. But I see the future. I see exploration and courage. I see my country finding new horizons out there. And I see giant leaps making a comeback. I see myself. The future is where I'll make history.
The roots of such a service goes as far back as 1945, and now, since its official creation in December 2019, it numbers roughly 5,000 personnel with around 80 planes and numerous satellites and missiles. Another very important piece of news came right after a COVID bill got passed, where a few key US agencies, namely the FBI, NSA, and the Navy, among others, are to present by summer of this year all the UFO documentations that they have on hand, with the goal being to see how the US government handled this phenomenon for the past decades and what does it all mean in terms of national security. At least, this seems to be the official point of the audit, and as such, we hope to shed some more light on this subject. I'm not saying that aliens aren't real, or even that they are, but what I am doing is piecing together what we do know for certain until now about this place, and trying to create for ourselves a more exact idea. Coming back to Area 51, over time there had been numerous groups who tried to put together all sorts of information about what companies have facilities on the Groom Lake salts, how they get the employees in and out using blacked out windows buses and planes from the nicknamed Janet Airlines, and generally did investigation work as to try and unravel the mystery of the ongoing projects around Area 51. This, alongside with all the recorded footage from the past decades and corroborated with whistleblower stories, still paint up to this day a very hazy image about real projects going on at the site. I do believe this to be a very normal approach to technical development of the military and national security, as they seem to do a good job in keeping things under wraps, so to speak. Following a very strict security protocol, with information being extremely compartmentalized and segregated between people working on the same projects, and as well between companies on site, the military is opting to sacrifice research efficiency for security, and so far it seems to be quite effective, with very little information leaking, and with the one that does go out either being true or fabricated, keeping the misinformation campaign well fed. One thing can be certain about Area 51, and that is that this is the go-to place for advanced military aircraft development over the decades, and where indeed great leaps in technology were achieved. How was all of this possible though? Is it because there are really aliens or alien craft at Groom Lake or S4? Maybe there are, since they've always been there, or maybe there are no aliens crafts at all, since they might be very advanced self-developed spacecrafts belonging to the United States Army that continue to be misidentified by the general public as it had happened in the past. Or maybe there have indeed been crashed or even intact recovered crafts that have been reverse engineered and that they've been kept under lock and used to further develop our current technology. Maybe all the progress that came out of this place and others like it have indeed something to do with the so-called unacknowledged special access programs that might exist and that receive a great deal of funds with no financial oversight from the government, and as well unlimited access to any and all resources required. Such a moment was caught just prior to the 9/11 disaster, when on Capitol Hill the Pentagon could not account for $2 trillion from its budget for that year alone. But this is nothing, as this is a recurring theme, since every year this sum only seems to increase, with the latest number hitting $35 trillion in 2020. With some context, that's more than the whole US GDP for 2019, that was $21.3 trillion, and the Pentagon just seems to be able to lose $35 trillion in US taxpayers' money the next year on top of every year of unaccounted money since? I don't know how the US is handling the situation, but at a glance, it doesn't seem to do a very good job of it. Even though Area 51 is definitely not the only such place in existence on Earth, with many countries having highly secured facilities for technological development of their own, like Russia's Kapustin Yar or similar bases in England, France, China, and even India, the discussion remains open on the subject. and I believe it will continue to remain so for quite some time. I definitely hope that some interesting info might be brought into the light starting with June of this year, when all the interagencies information on the topic must be shared with the public, but there will still be a great deal that might be redacted in parts of the documents that are still being classified as they contain sensitive information from ongoing projects. In the end, it seems that Area 51 is a convoluted mess of information where people want to believe something while being trapped in the middle of an intense disinformation campaign from all sides and not really knowing what to believe for certain. If you stuck around until the end, I do sincerely appreciate it and would ask you to subscribe for more content such as this, and as well to leave a comment down below. Thank you and see you in the next